We are privileged to have this interview. It doesn't happen very often to be able to talk to a member of the Arizona Supreme Court. But Arizona Supreme Court Justice Clint Bolick is joining us, and I truly appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Mike, so great to be with you.
It's been a long time since we talked. I used to joke on the air about my days long time ago and the Goldwater Institute, that when I would have to debate you on any topic, it scared the heck out of me that you were not somebody I wanted to tangle with. So,
well, fortunately, we didn't have to debate very often.
No, we didn't. But I want to dive into a couple of things, and I want to get some clarity because it's a question I have as a novice in this. The question about the decision that was made for the 97,000 voters who were in question of showing proof of citizenship. Why was it decided that they would be able to vote in this election? Are they in violation of proof of citizenship? And if so, why are they allowed to vote?
So this was an incredibly complex case, and it arose from the discovery of a glitch involving the motor vehicle department communicating to the recorder who was eligible to vote who got driver's licenses before there was a requirement to show proof of citizenship. And the answer to your question is we have no idea how many of these people in the intervening years proved their citizenship. And that was part of the issue. So the question was, should these people who have voted, presumably most of them have voted since the 1990s, if not longer, should they be deprived of the right to vote until they prove their citizenship, or should they be allowed to vote as they have consistently, and then provide such proof after the election? And we concluded for two reasons that they should be given a full ballot this year. And again, these are people who who got driver's licenses, only as recently as 1995. So they've been voting for decades until this glitch was discovered. And we ruled based on the fact that there's no state law giving us the authority to remove them from the ballot, plus the fact that it would affect their due process rights if they were removed without, basically that the presumption would be put on them to prove their citizenship rather than on the government to prove that these people who have voted for such a long time, and most of them have no idea that they were in this situation. So for this election, they will be allowed to vote.
Yeah, and I didn't fall into the category because I had registered to vote before 2005, but I was one of the people that had I got my driver's license when I moved here in 1995. I was given a duplicate license after that, so I kind of fell into that category. So I understand the concern for people, but I would also make this assumption that the people that fall into that category that are the ones that registered to vote later, those are people that are much like me, that are obviously citizens. They just missed a step because of the MVD.
Right. That's exactly right. And that's our assumption, and the county recorder shared our assumption on that. But basically when you discover a glitch like this, it really, in our view, is incumbent on the government to remove people on an individual basis, which they still have the ability to do. If there's any of these people that they think are not citizens, they can still remove them between now and the election or require them to show proof of citizenship. But we weren't going to grant relief that would basically take 98,000 people off the ballot or deprive them of their right to vote in state elections en masse.
Arizona Supreme Court Justice Clint Bolick is joining us. And now the judge retention issue here. People are up in arms. There's a movement to remove you from the bench by vote. because of a decision you made on the law that went back to the territorial law on abortion. And can you talk about that decision? Because it seemed to me to be very simple in this. The law stated what it stated, and you read the law and said, this is what the law says. So my job is to say what the law says. Is it just that simple?
It really is just that simple. And it's so frustrating to see people, who have other motivations seize upon a decision that was unpopular and that was very quickly changed by the legislature. So that ruling never took effect. But nonetheless, they are using it to try to remove my colleague, Justice Kate King, and me from the court, and to replace us with justices who will rubber stamp their ideological agenda. And we don't rubber stamp anybody's agenda. We follow the law, and that's exactly what we did in the abortion case. And most legal scholars, legal commentators who have looked at our decision, whether they're liberal or conservative, agree that we reached the right decision. All we did was to interpret the law. We did not implement our own policy or do what we thought ought to happen. That's the legislature's job and ultimately the people's job, not our job.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth. This is my opinion. And that Chief Justice Roberts of the United States Supreme Court said in a decision on Obamacare where he sided with the former president, he said it's not my job to decide whether a law is good or bad. It's whether it's constitutional or not. And if you don't want bad laws, stop electing bad lawmakers.
Well, I think that's a beautiful quote. And, of course, he is absolutely right. I can't tell you the number of times that as a judge, I have voted against my own policy views. And when I do that, I feel like I've acted as a judge rather than a politician. If the voters want a third political branch in addition to the legislature and the executive branches, then they should vote us out of office. But if they want an independent judiciary that rules on the basis of the law, I think that Justice King and I have demonstrated that we do that time and again.
If there was a proposition on the ballot or something on there for the voters on term limits, that would be a different argument because now you're talking about time on the bench and bringing in new blood. But I see a danger personally. It's a danger to me that you as a judge would have to think about, even for a second, political ideology and the possibility of being voted off the bench because of a decision you made that you thought was the right one, which would be, do I make the right decision by the Constitution or do I make the right decision for me keeping my job?
That's absolutely right. We don't want judges looking over their shoulders for the political consequences of their decision. It would destroy our judiciary. And Arizona has a particularly good judiciary. I don't say that because I'm part of it, but it actually attracted me when my wife and I left Washington, D.C. many, many years ago and moved to Arizona. Part of the reason was that Arizona has a very honest and law-abiding judiciary, and that's the result of merit selection and merit retention. And that will be destroyed if suddenly voters are voting not on the basis of the quality of the judge, the integrity of the judge, but on whether they like the decision that a judge made.
Well, Justice Bolick, I appreciate the time. It's a privilege to have you on the air. I appreciate the clarification on things, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
I hope so as well. Thanks so much for having me, Mike.
All right, that is Justice Clint Bolick from the Arizona Supreme Court talking on a couple of very, very important topics.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch the first season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.